So today you're really going to get a basic lesson in the principles of science of mind. Are you ready for that? And you didn't even have to pay any tuition for it. If you read Ernest Holmes' textbook, The Good Book, you find that Ernest Holmes describes the cosmos, the infinite life of divine, as three parts: spirit, soul, and body. And in spirit, whether it's universal presence or the individual presence of each of us, is that part of the divine which consciously chooses. Oh, my favorite voice. Sing it, Henrik, sing it. This is the part that chooses. This is the part that starts something. This is the part that consciously or sometimes not so consciously when it's individual, but when it's in the universal, it is always a conscious choice. Let's bring forth mountains, planets first of all, and seas, and people, and plants, and animals. There is a conscious choice in this creative principle where everything is manifest, beginning at the beginning. The spirit within, that which says, I choose. Now, Ernest Holmes sometimes refers to that, and ladies, don't get your knickers in a knot here, as the masculine principle. It's, you look at the whole world and you'll see that there is a positive and a negative. There is the electricity, and you know that there are two ways that works, and you need both. And that we have ways, in fact, avocado trees. Did you know that an avocado tree has to have another avocado tree nearby of the opposite sex in order to produce avocados? This is your birds and bees lecture, I forgot to tell you. So the assertive principle, Ernest Holmes called the divine masculine the assertive principle of being, both in God and in people. And this is where the choice is made. It is the starting point of the creative process. And just as it is true of the infinite, it's true of each one of us as well. There's a starting point within us. Jesus called it the Father within. It's when we turn to that presence and know there is a creative power here. It is mine to use. Oh boy, I'm going to use it consciously. I'm going to use it for good. Now, have you noticed that somewhere in the world, those choices have not always been made for good? That there have been choices that have been not good choices. But each idea is father to the fact. And everything begins with an idea. This self-conscious, self-propelling power of spirit, it creates through the power and the presence of love. Because love is the impelling, motivating power in this universe. And it's also that motivating and impelling power within each of us. We want to create. We have to create. There's something within us that just must make choices and must use the creative process. So we are learning how to use it consciously, creatively, and compassionately. We can use this power constructively, or we can use it destructively. And those gathered here have been, many of us for years, working on learning more and more how to use this power for good that Ernest Holmes taught us about. He wasn't the first one, but he did say at every talk, there's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. You can use it to make your life more successful, more peaceful, more loving, more harmonious, more creative. We can use the power for good. And for a short time, because anything that isn't of the nature of the divine cannot last forever, for a short time, people can use it for something other than good. But it cannot last. So the love of power is not a conscious, compassionate, creative use of it. Have you noticed in the world, there's a lot of that going on. That's not what we're about. It's not what we're ready to bring into this world as we're co-creating a world that works for all. So there is enough of that in the world, don't you think? Enough of that love of power. And it isn't really love at all, is it? It's a grasp for it. It's a false belief that a person or a group of people are somehow separate from their source. That somehow there's not enough to go around. That somehow they have not yet understood that they're more than their ego-based thinking, and that there's spirit within each one of us that wants to express, and it cannot express fully and completely unless we are in alignment with the harmonious activity of this universe. This universe still is operating harmoniously despite what some people have been doing with it. Because it's universal, it's eternal, it's creative, it's real. This loving power is something that never can go out of style. It's never going anywhere. And this world and all of the universe would have imploded if it wasn't true that there is an underlying harmony in all of the universe. We need to trust that. So the love of power antagonizes and alienates, whereas the power of love harmonizes and unites. The love of power divides and it destroys families, and the power of love brings individuals to wholeness and gathers people together. So we see this misuse. Anyone noticed this? We've seen the misuse of power all over the world. And it's not the first time, by the way. I mean, you study history, you're going to find out this has been going on for a long time. There are more and more conscious people who are awakening to the power that we have, that's a power for good to use to make the world a beautiful place, to bring heaven to earth, make it a place that we all desire to live. Thank you for all the millions of light workers coming together to make a difference. Please don't forget that you don't always see them, you don't always hear from them, but we're all working together. And it's true, and it's real, and it's powerful because it is the power of love. So when we see this misuse, do you ever get frustrated? Do you ever get angry? I recently saw a TED Talk that was very informative. And it was a person who's been studying anger for years. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but I think he's learned some very important things. We all know that fear is something that is in the limbic brain, right? It's something that stays with us. We needed it when we were living in caves and being chased by saber-toothed tigers. Because when we are afraid, we recognize, oh, there's danger. Now I know not to go in there. Now I know not to put my hand on that hot stove. It's a thing that we have, and it's to protect us. I never thought of anger before as something that was a good thing. Well, I realize it's just an energy. It's what we do with it that matters. But I didn't think in terms of what this gentleman said, that if we get frustrated about something, and he used the case in point of some of the drivers on the freeway. We get frustrated because we're going to an appointment, and it's a very important appointment. If we miss that appointment, we might not get the job, and then we're going to wind up in the poorhouse. We do this all futurizing, awfulizing, right? Just because somebody's driving slowly in front of us. Well, I have a friend, a minister friend, who always used to say, whoever was driving in front of him, he realized was his angel. Wouldn't that be a good way to put it? His angel. Well, getting angry is better than getting frustrated, because when we realize that we're angry about something that is not right, it can awaken us to injustice. I think it's appropriate for us to awaken to injustice. That doesn't mean we're going to go down that rabbit hole. It doesn't mean we're going to get into the awfulizing. It does mean I am upset about this because what's happening there is not right. It's not compassionate. It's not loving. It is not the divine intention for any person or animal. It's not right. Now I have an opportunity that I have been awakened, as the fear may have awakened me to the hot stove. I've now been awakened to something that doesn't feel right to me. And what I do about it is important. I want to go first to the Father within. I want to go first to that supreme spirit within that is always loving, always wise, always guiding me to what's the right next thing to do. And I will ask then, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? Think back to the times that you have encountered a situation that just wasn't right, and you got quiet enough to make a good decision, and then you did it. And I just remembered I was in Chicago many years ago at a ministers' gathering, and several of us had gone through Millennium Park. It's a wonderful place, and we were on our way to a nice little restaurant there. And I saw a man beating his son. And I got angry, and then I got quiet, and then I began to listen, and I asked, what is mine to do? And I walked over to him, and I said, stop beating that child right now. I wasn't planning on it, that's just what happened. He was 15, and he was a special child. And he stopped, and he said, oh, I'm really sorry. I said, don't apologize to me, but to your son. He said, well, you don't understand. He said, he was just throwing pop bottles at people. And we began to talk, and the boy just was holding a tree and sobbing. And I went to him and comforted him as I talked to his father. I don't remember everything that Spirit had me say, but I do remember that the man's face softened. He was very ashamed. And I said, it must be very difficult for you. You do love your son, don't you? He said, I really do. It is so hard. He's so big now, and it's so hard to control him. And I said something like, I know you love him. I know there are answers. And physicality is never one of them, ever. And the two of them walked away, arms around each other. And my minister friends were going, and we went on to lunch. And in the meantime, we were passing a couple of nuns. And they said to me, thank you, thank you. When something isn't right, when someone's getting hurt, it may be ours to do to speak up. Don't do it if you feel you're going in harm's way. But when you're taking the power of love with you, you will not be harmed. I did a prison ministry for 2 years. People would say, oh, isn't that scary going in there? Not at all. Do you know how grateful these men are when you walk into a place with a smile on your face and being willing to see who they really are despite anything they may have done? So welcoming, they would never harm. Never. My favorite was a murderer. I'll tell you all that story some other time. He was just a huge, gentle giant. He had never even had a traffic ticket before this took place. You've heard of crimes of passion. He would gather all the other guys to come and join our circle. And they were there knowing that somebody saw them, saw them as to who they really were, because there were some of these men who had never, ever been told anything good about themselves their whole lives. And for someone to see who they really were, I trust was a gift. In most cases, well, by now, certainly in all cases, I never saw them after a certain amount of time. but I know we plant seeds. How do we plant seeds? We are gardeners of love. We bring something wonderful into our world and into our lives and into the entire world. So the second part of that triune nature of the infinite is the subjective. We have the conscious, the subconscious, or the objective, choosing consciously, and subconscious or subjective. And then the third part is the manifestation, spirit, soul, and body. And we need all three. We have all three, both universally and personally. And so when we make conscious choices aligned with that precious power and love within us, those choices are received in the subjective area of our lives, which are part of the entire subjectivity of the universe. What a great system. And then things come into place. We plant the seeds, and the flowers come up, and the trees come up. And what's wonderful is that in that original idea is the complete result already. What do you think is in an acorn? That little acorn. An entire oak tree, and in fact, a whole lot of oak trees. In one little acorn, in one powerful divine idea that you and I begin with. It's astonishing what can come into the world. And what a difference we can make in it. Spirit, soul, and body. So you see, the power of love is what we are divinely designed to use. What are you ready to design in your life? Let's first return to the source where we begin our work. And then remember that the power of our word is greater than any circumstance or any condition. We have the faith in the presence, which is all giving, all loving, completely generous. Everything is available to us. We have a faith in that presence. We have a faith in the way the law of mind works in the subjective area of life. And we have faith in our own word and our ability to speak it, whether it's aloud or whether it's within in silent prayer. So how can you and I make a difference? How can we make a difference right now? Oh, you don't mind if I just listen to him for a while, do you? Sweet, sweet, sweet. Return to the Father. Jesus called the Father Abba, Abba, because the presence of God's love was so close to him that he called it Father, Abba. To return to the Father within. Now we know that God is not a big man in the sky. When we say Father, we're not talking about some anthropomorphic being. We're talking about that place, the originating spirit within us all. We return first to that place. And then we ask, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? So we first inquire within, as the sign says in the store window. We first inquire within, feel that loving presence, feel ourselves being so loved that we can't help but let that love spill over and move out into the world. And then we ask, what is mine to do? We're all capable of evoking this power. It's a power of health and well-being, not only for ourselves, but for people everywhere, for the planet itself. So in this way, we empower humanity to be revealed in its divinity. Isn't that what we're about? Reveal our spiritual magnificence. I'd like to complete this with a very well-known quote from Emmett Fox. There is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer, no dis-ease that enough love will not heal, no door that enough love will not open, It makes no difference how deep set the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful being in the world. That is the power of love, and we all have it. So will you say with me, I am father to my own experience.
I am father to my own experience.
I engage the mighty power of love.
I engage the mighty power of love.
It brings warmth and healing
It brings warmth and healing
to all beings everywhere.
to all beings everywhere.
And so, my beloveds, beginneth our lesson. Thank you.